What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In this video I'm going to be going over some updates for Bitcoin, but nonetheless going to get it started here. First off, looking on the 4-hour chart, Bitcoin been rather bloody, brutal over the last few days. Most notably going back to, I believe this is it here, when you're zooming in, Bitcoin was moving up from February 18th at around 93.3 all the way up to February 21st, 99.5, just shy of 100K. I was pointing out the fact that this was right here, as you can see with this high volume vector candle. The first time Bitcoin had closed above the 200 EMA since here, February 3rd. This time around, obviously Bitcoin did this. It was a false close and it did continue to go downwards. But I was entertaining the idea that this right here may have been very promising until the Bybit hack happened, which really represents these two candles right here, and until really going to around, which no news has really been associated with much of this. Obviously, I mean, with the last few quote unquote significant pullbacks Bitcoin has had, people have been referring to them as liquidation events, and I think generally that's what most of them, in terms of the whole like conceptualization of the market maker, or market makers. I mean, if you really want to kind of conglomerate all of these, like Binance market makers, Coinbase market, all the centralized exchanges, and all of those conglomerated into a, kind of like this shadowy, behind the veil, somewhat non-existent unified market maker. Where, I mean, which essentially all of those market makers, whether you obviously have a group like Binance, Coinbase, so on and so forth, they all do eventually factor into the same market, the same asset. For example, your Bitcoin, and does in a sense become almost as if there's just a market maker, because it's all factoring into, it's all streamlining into Bitcoin, and clearly significantly influencing the price. But since that Bybit hack, Bitcoin is down basically 18%, approximately 18%, closing below here the 200 or the 800 EMA, with now recently reaching basically 82,000, specifically $82,111.12 with the recent pullback. We go all the way back to 109,000, which I'll get to this on the weekly chart and its significance. Bitcoin's down basically 25%, which has been typical. I think somewhere around like 25, 30, 35% has been the norm for this bull market so far. Typically 20 to 40% is a more broader range when it comes to Bitcoin bull markets. So obviously there's still more room towards the downside here. Although if we look at the RSI, it's quite oversold. The RSI is sitting at 22 at lowest. There's some bullish divergences to point out. For example, here the stock RSI. We see the MACD here as well. Just recently, as you can see, flipped bullish, although that could be short-lived and it could flip bearish once more. RVI also here, bullish divergence. The ASO here, the bearish bullish sentiment. The RSI is not really showing it, but it is somewhat flat, lining out. Also, again, it's insanely oversold. It's at 22. It has the ability to go lower. Like, for example, something like this could happen if there is another move towards the downside. If you look here at the daily, the current vector zone here, which Bitcoin's been eating into more recently with this pullback, this correction. Again, like I said, bottoming out approximately 82,000. This vector zone here, the most notable one, goes down to 77.4. The one below it is 68.8 to 70.6, and then 62.5 to around 64.9, basically 65,000. I don't think that it's too likely that this one right here will be met. Perhaps this one right here, so approximately around is basically $70,000. If this gets met, I think it'll be with some wicks. So like, for example, this one goes down to 77.2. Maybe we see Bitcoin kind of come down to this range, close closer like right here, maybe within this box, and then we see some quick wicks down to this vector zone. If anything, maybe something like that. There are a number of reasons why I am currently, I'm not saying, obviously I have no idea if this is the case, but right now I'm currently leaning to the fact that Bitcoin is bottomed out. Now we may see, looking here at this 4-hour chart again, might see some sideways action, here going sideways, and then it'll finally break back up. Right now, this more short-term, this more micro steep resistance has been broke above. This did happen right here when Bitcoin is coming around here. Obviously, it went lower, so maybe we'll see one more pull back down to around, like, again, maybe around like 77, 75,000 with some wicks. Now, looking here also, this one's going to be important to get above, which is at this point, extrapolating these estimated moving averages out, it's going to be all generally somewhere around like around 91.5 to around 93,000. So that's going to be important. The 200 estimated moving average sits around 96.3. There's also this uppermost resistance here that sits, obviously depending upon when it happens, but roughly probably somewhere around 98, basically 99 to 100,000. So generally kind of, synonymous with this orange box here that I've had on this chart for quite some time. So those values are going to be important. Just to zoom out, really, to show it on the 4-hour chart. If we look how oversold, and I'll show this on the daily as well, but Bitcoin is, again, as already pointed, it's heavily oversold. It's rivaling, this is the most oversold it's been since going down to here, wicking down to 49,000. Really generally with these three areas right here is what the current, as you can see here, mainly with this orange zone, what the RSI is rivaling. If we go back even further, it would be comparable to when Bitcoin is hitting 25K going sideways here before it moved all the way ultimately up to 75K. It would be also similar to right here at the end of the first intermediate consolidation, which moved up to around 31,000. Also would be roughly similar to the bear market bottom all the way back here, November 2022, around 16,000. So on the 4-hour chart, historically, insanely oversold, also comparable to other, as I've already shown, points in the past where Bitcoin was bottoming out. Maybe there's still a little bit more percentage downside, but it's more likely than not quite close. Which really factors into the fear and greed index and where it is, which I'll get to that here in a few moments. But if we look here specifically on the daily and the RSI, but just to point out this uptrend here before I get to that, actually, if we look, now I'll go ahead and redraw this. So this is a trend, really one of the lowermost, drawn from the wick low of August 5th, so down around 49K, to the wick low of the candle that closed the lowest of September 7th, then down to the actual wick low of September 6th during this time frame here from August 4th to September 7th, 2024. You can see Bitcoin is coming up all the way to where it is currently. It's meeting it, wicked a little bit below, obviously, like I said, down to around 82K, but the 200 estimated moving average here as well is also potentially another a criteria where we could see Bitcoin bottom out at. If we also look at the notable, again, the vector zone, remember here as well, with the 50% rule of thumb, 50% is the only thing that's necessary, and the 50% does sit at basically 83,000 on the dot. So that has been met until now that hadn't been met. So again, that could be another reason why it was necessary for Bitcoin to come lower here. And I'll really kind of draw this in full circle once I get to the weekly to point out something I mentioned on a community tab post within the last few days or so. But there are plenty of things that could be pointing to the fact that the Bitcoin has seen the local low, but again, it could definitely see one final stride down to maybe even somewhere around $75,000 to $72,000 with some wick lows in a probably a relatively quick fashion. But if we look down here at the, so again, this is on the daily chart. If we look here at the RSI, we will see that down here with this purple zone, so on the values from around 32 to 21, currently comparably speaking, where Bitcoin is now on the zone is again comparable to the range here as Bitcoin is bottoming out at 50K approximately, give or take a couple $1,000s. Also again comparable to 25K as it went up to 75K. Also again comparable to March of 2023 moving up to 32K, and also comparable to the bottom, bear market bottom of 16K as it then moved all the way up to 32K. And actually, currently, the RSI is more oversold than it was back here at 16K. It's more oversold than it was back here in March of 2023. Again, so 16K, around 22K. It's essentially just as oversold as it was back at around $50,000 to $49,000. Yet Bitcoin is sitting currently around 85.3, wicking down to 82,000. Yet the RSI is at the exact same levels as each of these, as I pointed out, each of these 4 critical points when Bitcoin is bottoming out. That is, if I may say so, quite a bullish sign and quite a good sign of reversal as well. Again, what it could very well go lower in one last stride, as I've been pointing out, down to the 70Ks somewhere. And particularly what could happen is we see the RSI move back up, and maybe the price will kind of fizzle out sideways here for a bit and then dip down one more time. We'll see the RSI move up and it'll come down, and what we'll see here is the price continues to go lower, but we'll see here this divergence here, this bullish divergence with respect to the RSI ascending and the price descending. So that's something that could happen, which would play along the fact that despite the RSI being super oversold right now, and not just in general within this like micro segment of the current price action we see, but also historically with the current bull market, the RSI being oversold doesn't mean this is the low. Again, that could play out as a bullish divergence, meaning the price will go lower. So that's something to keep in mind as well. This descending resistance is also still going to be very important to break at this point, with the fact that we have seen 1, 2, really 3 or 4, looking how, depending on how you want to look at it. So 3 or 4 rejection points. I believe that once we finally see this get broke this time around, it will be that golden break that moves into the next move towards higher highs, because there's plenty of reasons to think that the Bitcoin bull market is not over. The top actually hasn't been set. Also, another notable thing to point out is the fact that the Bollinger Bands have been significantly broken here. For example, now there's something similar would be back here in around mid-December roughly, where we saw Bitcoin wick down to around 92,000, which obviously, you know, Bitcoin continued to stagger lower here and go sideways, but when you see the RSI breaking out of the Bollinger Bands here, the price had to wick down to the horizontal low, and then obviously price went up to under 9K, and obviously it's been going down since. But it's the fact that, again, zooming out and looking at the bigger picture, again, we are in this historically, in terms of the current bull run, highly oversold, you know, more oversold than the bear market low back at 15, 16K at the end of 2022. And on top of that, as I pointed out here, we are seeing the Bollinger Bands being broken. And that generally, especially, again, just to emphasize this, the fact that it's in this highly oversold territory, more likely than not, is indicative that 82K is the local low, or there will be one last move down to somewhere $70,000 to $80,000 to give the broader range. If you look here at the stock RSI, it's also, you know, bottomed out, potentially also forming this type of type 2 double bottom again, assuming the $82,000 is the final local low of the current intermediate consolidation. We also look here at the MACD. It is actually, it's essentially just as oversold as when Bitcoin was at back in May 2022 here to June 2022, when it was somewhere around like basically $30,000, $20,000, as it was really setting right here, setting this first bottom of this double bottom right here, a type 2 double bottom, which again, this would be comparative to what I pointed out here on the stock RSI, where the type 2 double bottom looks like, where you see the first bottom here, then you see this M, and then you see the second bottom here, and then it moves back towards the upside. So again, factoring in the RSI, how oversold it is, the fact that the price again is on this 200 estimated moving average, which is a great place to find support, and the MACD being at this point, especially if it goes lower, this will be the most oversold the MACD has been for the, I mean, since, I mean, going back to the retracement in leading into, you know, summer of 2021 right here from May, June, July, then moving back up to 69K. So I mean, the fact that Bitcoin's literally in price discovery, yet these indicators are this oversold, it's, you know, says quite a lot at the end of the day, even though, again, like I said, it could totally go a tad bit lower here at this point. Also looking here at the vector zones of the current daily chart and the vector candles associated with such, we saw here as this downtrend, or this correction rather, this landslide was beginning, we saw right here this violet, or this purple, this increasing bearish volume vector printed. Then afterwards we see here red, or not red, two black, so high volume, bearish volume vector candles printed. Now we're seeing red. So we saw the bearish volatility increasing, and then it started to reach, you know, maximal here, and now it seems to be going back to like normal, you know, it's kind of easing off. So again, this could either be indicating that we're going to see Bitcoin, best case scenario, get a V-shaped recovery here, move back up, and then continue to go higher. Maybe it'll fizzle out here sideways for a little bit, and, you know, more gradually, kind of like in a U fashion, move towards the upside. Again, like I said, maybe it sits here sideways for a bit and then dumps one more time, prints a bullish divergence like I was saying, and then, you know, in some form of fashion builds back up and breaks the necessary resistance that it needs to do. So going in here to the weekly, really tie all this in. Then I'm going to get to the fear and greed index and some other on-chain metrics. Then I'm going to get into kind of some Bitcoin dominance and altcoin relative analysis. But look here at the weekly chart. Obviously here, as you can see, I was pointing out this pennant bull flag. I was also pointing out that there could be potential fake out at this point. That is what we are getting. Now, given that I still do believe that the bull market's not over, the Bitcoin still has a move up towards 100,000, not 100,000, upwards towards 180 to 250,000, maybe 300K at highest, but, you know, I think 180 to around 230, 250K is the sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone, for various reasons that I've gone over in the past. So at this point, I believe we're seeing this fake out. Now, the first thing I want to go over is, which I hinted towards earlier on, is the fact that in each of the legs, so if we characterize the bull market structure here, this is the first leg of the first impulse, second leg, second impulse, and then Bitcoin's currently on this third impulse, which is here correcting right now, and we'll then go higher. So with this first impulse, we see here that the intermediate consolidation correction was 22.58%. This second one here was 21.34%. So we're seeing 21, 22%. This time around, as I pointed out on the 4-hour chart, is 25%. So that criteria has been met. Obviously, want to, you know, it's a very small amount of percentage points over. But at this point, let's say it actually does go a little bit lower. Let's say it goes to, I mean, 75% is 30%, you know, around 72% at the bottom of this vector zone. So like basically 69, 70,000 would be 36, 37%, which would be pushing that limit of that 40, 42, 43%, you know, at maximum healthy correction, even during a bull market. So the fact that this is being met is quite important. This could be another indicator that Bitcoin is bottomed out at 82K. Also, if we look here at the weekly vector candles and the weekly vector zone, the 50% region here was, funnily enough, exactly where Bitcoin wicked to, down at approximately 82,000. So with the whole 50% rule, it's only necessary, especially during bull markets, that these vector candles here, so we see these, mainly these three here, the two whites and the yellow, that only 50% necessarily needs to be recovered, and especially during bull markets, a lot of times even 50% won't be recovered, but at this point, 50% just about on the dot has been recovered. So again, this is another good reason to see Bitcoin bottom out here, but again, it could continue to go lower, maybe find a little bit more closer support somewhere around, you know, maybe the lower portion of this EMA band. That's definitely possible as well. Obviously, you know, it happened here in September, October 2023, and it happened here as well in September, October 2024. There's plenty of precedents for that to occur as well, although I don't think right now, at least that's not what I'm leaning to. I don't personally see that as the more likely than not scenario. Now, the big thing that I pointed out recently on a community post was the fact that if you look here, zooming in, this intermediate consolidation here with this red estimated moving average, the 13 EMA, was respected during this intermediate consolidation. And you see how there's this major wick to the downside. And within the same weekly candle, all that downside got bought back up and it moved back above the 13 EMA. Same thing happened. Again, this is all quarter one. So this one right here was March of 2023, or yeah, March of 2023. You fast forward again, quarter one of 2024. This time it was in January. It was the end of January. So basically being in a favor. So it was about a month apart, roughly. Again, we see something very similar. We see a candle, major way to the downside, gets bought back up of 13 EMA. So again, thinking about this bull flag, this pennant flag, we could see within this weekly candle, which is 3 days, 14 hours left. So it's going to happen. It's going to have to happen relatively quickly, and obviously it's also going to have to happen leading into the weekend. Typically, obviously it's not a guarantee, but a lot of times weekend price action is relatively boring. And actually, I saw something. I might go back and try to find it. It's probably going to be somewhat difficult to find, but if I do, I'll overlay it. But I saw a post on X about how every single weekend since the inauguration of Trump has just been bad news. So maybe something terrible is going to come again, and we're going to get some sort of black swan event. We're going to see Bitcoin down to 70, maybe even 60K, which is the bottom of the barrel. If Bitcoin starts to significantly close like daily candles and higher below 60K for like a multi-week especially period, then I'm going to start probably saying that the bear market has begun. But as of right now, that's not the case. But I do want to point out the fact that this is going to have to be bought up very quickly if we're going to see history repeat or rhyme. Essentially what would happen is we'll see this body, this candle, get bought back up just to above the 13 EMA. So at this point, it's just somewhere around approximately 94K. Back up towards what was support here, and then the next candle will open up and then move back up into the pennant and then continue to go higher. So this will just end up culminating, in this scenario at least, as a fake out of the bull flag, which is relatively common with bull flag in general, or the pennant flag variation. And if we look here at the, actually there's not really too much for me to go over for those indicators. Looking here at this chart on the weekly, this is this black line you see here is the M2, global M2, I think it's the liquidity, I believe. Yeah. So this has been going around quite a lot. Basically what you'll see here is if you look here at the black line, it bottoms out, and then, roughly, approximately 30 to 45 days, which it actually gets a little bit longer than that, but some approximate time frame afterward, you see the M2 bottom out, Bitcoin lags behind it, bottoms out, moves up. Obviously the M2 started moving up beforehand. This time around right here was basically spot on with the M2. If we also look right here as the M2 is finally bottoming out leading into this move, Bitcoin here, as you can see, lagged behind and then moved up and followed in suit with the M2. Now this time around right here was a difference of around 42 days. This difference right here was a difference of around, depending upon if you take it to the wick low, the wick low is 49 days, the candle close low is 77 days, so we're basically seeing somewhere around like 40 to 80 days. So, and really what is most important about this is the fact that the M2 bottomed out right here in this region and has moved up, and now we're seeing Bitcoin is continuing to go lower. We're seeing the lagging here as well. So depending upon where you take the measurement from here, so if you take it from this region right here outwards, it's somewhere around basically 50 days. If you take it from this low here, somewhere around 98 days. Excuse my cat if you can hear her meowing. She will just not stop, so you're gonna have to bear with it. But so I mean, depending upon how you take it, it's around 50 to 100 days. So generally, relatively similar. So I mean, you could extend the range out to 50 to 100 days for the lag. But we've seen the M2 correct itself towards the upside here, and Bitcoin's finally seeing this potentially this final liquidation event. However you want to contextualize it in terms of the fundamental landscape. And so this is indicating, I mean, obviously going back towards the beginning here of the bull market, that we'll see Bitcoin over the next few weeks here, reverse back here and finally, go upwards towards the, something along these lines by right now at this point. As long as this current move to the downside can quickly recover, I still am looking towards, at earliest, probably late Q2, early Q3. But if this downtrend or this correction here ends up sustaining longer, then I'm going to start to shift my all-time high bias or projection towards late Q3, early Q4, late Q4 at the latest. So generally just probably late Q3, quarter 4 in general. As I talked about recently, going over other credible analysts' views on when the all-time high could pan out, which most people are pointing towards Q4 because of various historical reasons, but I still think there also are other people as well. Late Q2, early Q3 is also fairly reasonable as well. So this is good to see. I mean, this is obviously a pretty, at this point, it's gone all the way back to the beginning of 2023. So at this point, you're on 2-year historical correlation with another data point that is indicating the movement towards the upside here, alongside everything else that I've gone over now. Looking at the fear and greed, relatively small, so you're not able to see it too well. Extreme fear, it's at 10. And what's really interesting about this is if you go to the actual fear and greed Bitcoin chart, the last time Bitcoin saw this level of intense extreme fear, so 10 or lower, was all the way back here in May, June, July of 2023 when it was hitting 30K, then dumped down to 20K, And even when Bitcoin is at 15, 16K, it was only at around at lowest 21. So I mean, really this was kind of indicative of the fact that, I mean, Bitcoin hit 30, 20K and then dumped all the way down to 15, 16K, but for whatever reason, people were not as fearful. I mean, that was, if anything, a total testament to the depressed, troll face meme, where people have just completely, just shut off their emotions at this point. They've been dragged through the mud so badly that they're just an emotional void where any and all emotions are just ephemeral, fleeting, nothingness to them at that point, which is quite funny. So, I mean, again, so this current chart doesn't have it updated. It still has 21 at the lowest. So it still has some room to update, go a little bit lower. So we could actually, again, with that whole bullish divergence scenario that I was pointing out earlier on the 4 hour and the daily, where back here, even during the Bitcoin bear market low here, there's a, obviously you see the price is descending and there was a bullish divergence. So we could see something similar where we're reaching, 10, maybe even lower currently. And then we're going to see price dump down somewhere around like maybe right here in this range, somewhere around like I said, $70,000, $75,000. And we're going to see the fear and greed go from 10 and then it'll start building up, which would probably, again, if Bitcoin does have one more move to the downside, I jokingly said that they're probably going to have to add negative values to the fear and greed. But again, we could see a scenario very similar to the bottom of the bear market, of the most prior bear market. Before I get into the altcoin analysis of the Bitcoin dominance, etc., I want to go over a few on-chain metrics, which I touched on some of these recently. But if Bitcoin has indeed topped out at $109,000, then many of the on-chain metrics and many of the other historical models that have previously, throughout the last phases and last cycles since Bitcoin's inception, that have accurately predicted the phase cyclical all-time highs are going to be broken or drastically altered. So for example, if we look here at the again, I have no idea how to pronounce this. I don't know if it's like Puel or Puel. I'm just going to call it the PMs. So the PM here, as you can see, this red zone is mainly the top out zone where you can see here back in 2011, 2013, 2017 here, 2021. And we have, right, this time around, haven't even seen it get down to even the bottom. So let's say like right here has been the all-time high at around $109,000. Then this box would have to extend all the way down here, which would include, for example, going all the way back to right here when Bitcoin was nowhere near the all-time high in 2012 September. Going back here to around, the range of December 2015 to around June of 2016. Again, when Bitcoin was nowhere near the all-time high, hadn't even broke the previous all-time high of 2013, 2013. Again, it would have to factor in the intermediate high of 2019 on July. So there's plenty of reasons. I mean, if we look here at the MVRZ score, we'll also see, again, we see this red zone up here at the top out historical all-time high zone. This one's even more drastic. Bitcoin has gotten nowhere near it. Again, we'd have to bring this box all the way down to here, which would include, again, it would include price action that was nowhere near the all-time highs. I mean, if this is the all-time high, then this indicator going forward would no longer really be valuable in predicting all-time highs because it's going to include such a large set of data that extends down into price action nowhere near all-time highs that it's, if anything, it's just an indicator that Bitcoin's about to break the prior all-time high and go significantly higher, and you would want to actually really look for specific zones. But obviously, as you can see here, relatively speaking, from here to here to here, and then to most, recently, obviously I think it's going to go higher, but this is, we're seeing these peaks here on the MVRZ score go lower as time progresses, which makes sense of the inherent structure and nature of Bitcoin. If we look here at the net unrealized profit loss, again, this has the capitulation here, market sentiment at the bottom, moving into some psychological sentiment, hope, fear, optimism, anxiety, belief, denial here, euphoria, and greed. That's also another big thing. We have not seen those, peak, ecstatic, frenzied states of euphoria and greed. I think the highest, looking back on the fear, and 80, at this point, 87. So 87 is the highest the fear and greed has got. 88 back here. So basically 87, 88. Hasn't even gotten into the 90s yet, which isn't necessary. I'm not saying it's necessary, but I still just do not think nor has it felt like anything in the past where Bitcoin has reached those just peaks of total euphoria where everybody's just ecstatic. So again, that's just another reason. If you look really, take out all the technical analysis and all the, statistics, whether, fundamentally, all that, and just really think about the psychological sentiment, since the bottom of this bear market here, moving up to where we are now. I mean, really, retail hasn't really stepped in yet, and honestly, that really may not happen. I mean, we may not see the swaths, the flocking massively of retail this time around. Obviously, this bull market's been heavily institutionalized, through the Bitcoin ETFs, BlackRock, Vanguard, so on and so forth. And I think that's only going to increase over the next, few years or the next number of decades as Bitcoin and blockchain solutions in general become more and more adopted and integrated into society and civilization. I think that's only natural. But again, here we see with this red zone upper here, euphoria greed has not been met yet. So according to this indicator, which has been, I mean, clearly as you can see here, 2013 of April, 2013 of November, 2017 of December, 2021 of March, April, every single time we see these levels of, this ecstatic euphoric greed met. It has not happened yet. So again, I think there's just plenty of reasons to kind of just sit back, relax. Again, there's actually one thing I wanted to go over. I totally forgot exactly what it was. It may have been, it wasn't that. It was this one right here. It was the CVDD. I haven't come across this this on-chain metric yet. This one's actually really interesting. It's actually predicted, and even accurately, precisely predicted the Bitcoin bottom since the bottom of phase 1 of cycle 2 in November of 2011. Here you can see approximately $2 here. Wait, was that right? Yeah, well, yeah, around $2. And then go to January 2015, around $285. You fast forward here, December 2018, somewhere around like, $3.5 to $4,000. Go to most recently, end of 2022, $15,000, $16,000. So this would be something I would keep my eyes out on as time goes forward. At this point, looking at the line and kind of just, estimating, making educated guess on how this will continue to trend upwards here as Bitcoin continues to go higher. I would have to imagine with the current, let me get a line out here to draw, let's see, draw a line with the rough current slope. I don't really have a time to look at, but I mean, roughly looking somewhere around, yeah, so that'd be somewhere around, depending upon, if I can get the, yeah, somewhere around $55,000, $65,000, which actually generally lines up with where I think Bitcoin's going to bottom out in the next bear market. I think at highest, approximately 70,000, at lowest, approximately 50,000 is where Bitcoin will bottom out during the next bear market, somewhere probably late, late 2026 is going to be the first, moment or period of time where I'm actually going to start becoming interested in investing in the crypto market again. But more so really to be safe, probably like pushing mid to late 2027. So I mean, I would say, again, none of this is financial advice, but I would say late 2026, early 2027 is generally, at least when I am going to start getting interested after this current bull run, interested back in Bitcoin and altcoins, as I think that's when the market will be bottoming out. So again, really, there's just so many reasons, in the actual technical charts, looking at the on-chain metrics, to think that Bitcoin is not actually reached that all-time high yet. And again, I mean, remember, Bitcoin's only down 25%. Bitcoin was down 33% here for 6 to 8 months, and it still went from $50,000 all the way up to $109,000. But look here, Bitcoin was down 20%, and then it moved from $25,000 all the way up to approximately $75,000. This is not a big deal. It's I don't know if it just is going to show how many new people are in this space, which would imply that there's a large flocking of new retail, which doesn't feel that way. But I don't know, maybe this is a testament to how many new people have come into the space due to how many people are just absolutely losing their mind over, a 25% pullback that's been characteristic of this entire bull market so far. All right, so moving here into the Bitcoin dominance, again, we see this ascending resistance here that was met recently with the wick all the way up to around 64%. So far it's cooled back down and has moved back in here into this long-term macro descending resistance that I've gone over in past videos. Looking here at the RSI, this was ascending support. You saw the Bitcoin broke above it, briefly went back above and moved down. This is reminiscent and reminding me of back here from, similar RSI support. Looking at November 2019, where it briefly went below, moved back above, and then dumped, and then clearly you can see Bitcoin just fell off the cliff after, or Bitcoin dominance rather fell off the cliff. So, generally, again, I don't think alt season is just not going to happen. That's been said from cycle to cycle. It's been said for years. People always say that towards the end of the bull market for Bitcoin, and a lot of times when you really start to see a large group of people and that sentiment becomes significantly pushed, then typically that is implying that it is right around the corner. Now, one thing I did say recently is that as Bitcoin, blockchain solutions in general are becoming more and more adopted, and cryptographic, the currencies that you're buying are becoming more and more, or not necessarily that they are becoming, or that they are necessarily becoming more and more skewed to having to actually have some sort of genuine real world use case, not just some meme coin or, anything stupid, meme coins, or, just some, even like just a project that has a use case, but it's just, it's just not a good project, or the use case is just, it's not that good. This time, also just because there's so many altcoins that are diluting the space, a lot of those, again, being meme coins, this time around with this alt season, as I said, could be, it's not alt season anymore, which, is indicative of the fact that all altcoins are going to go up. But this time around, we could see alt season transition into viable or integral blockchain solution season, where only the cryptocurrency assets, the blockchain solutions that are presenting genuine use case and actual, real world importance and viability in terms of, the protocol that they offer, what they can actually do to better, certain sectors, whether it's, logistics, finances, the medical healthcare industry, energy, telecommunications, many things. That really, this time around, this alt season could be only skewed towards, something such as XYO or Anchor or, Polygon or Phantom or, genuine, layer one blockchains, again, stress the point, that actually have, they do things. They're not just some stupid meme coin that's running off narrative or hype. Now, narrative is big, obviously, with the whole AI stuff, AI coins, which, obviously, a lot of those AI coins have use cases, but the narrative also will, especially psychologically, drive something higher. Generally, at the end of the day, the markets are very heavily psychologically driven. So, again, this is really just pointing to, again, seeing the, Bitcoin dominance dump here. As soon as it starts to hit this 50% value right here, this purple horizontal line as I've been pointing out, and then it dips lower, that's really when things are going to take off. Seeing this further rejection is going to be great. Again, it's quarter one. Quarter one has historically been very good for Bitcoin dominance in terms of alt season beginning. Going back here to quarter one 2017, tanked. Quarter one of 2021, tanked. Again, quarter one 2025, I think it's going to tank, obviously. I don't know what's going to happen. I could be wrong. But like that's a total 3, so the total crypto market capitalization, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. I went over this chart in a previous video, so I'm not really going to focus on it too much. I just really want to point out, just where it is. It hasn't particularly changed too much. It hasn't even gone. It's already wicked low down to around like 740 billion. Again, so it's coming and it's meeting this the 50 EMA band here. This is a fantastic support pad. Look right here, back in July, August, September, October 2024, and it boom shot up to 100 or 1.15, 1.16 trillion. This is, again, this could be a fantastic move towards the upside. It's just really a game. It's all a psychological game at this point. We're reaching, that kind of that gray, that liminal stage of the bull run, especially for Bitcoin. Is it going to have one more move towards the upside, or was $109,000 the all-time high? Altcoins are getting ran through the mud. They're being brutalized and obliterated. Some of them have made new lows, like Polygon, which is, a good project, and yet it's making new lows. And Bitcoin's, has it topped out? It's very close to top. Why is why are, people asking why are, genuinely good blockchain solutions like something like Matic or other ones that are perhaps doing the same, why are they making new lows at, this latest stage in the bull market? Is alt season going to happen? Again, it's really, at this point, it's just a matter of whether or not you have enough psychological fortitude and this objectification from your ego and all that, emotional distress that it, throws from the recesses of your unconscious into your mind, and your your unconscious throws into your mind and your consciousness throughout the day through thoughts and feelings. And oh, you check the charts and Bitcoin's down 5-10%. Oh, I'm gonna freak out. No, you don't have to freak out. It's actually not that big of a deal. If we look here at the others chart, so this is everything total market cap wise, excluding, this is everything outside of the top 10. Again, as we can see here, it's at the 50 EMA band. There's no vector zones until all the way down here at around 120 up to 150 billion. I mean, maybe we see something like this, especially Bitcoin hardcore dumps, but I don't particularly think that is, I think that's very unlikely. Definitely not the most or more likely than that scenario. Maybe we come on down a little bit more and touch a 200 EMA at around basically 200, 190 to 200 billion and then bounce up. But I mean, again, if we look here at the others dominance, as I pointed out, there is this macro uptrend. This is using the non-logarithmic chart here. And these green boxes here, again, this is quarter one of 2017. Altcoins went crazy. Quarter one of 2021. Altcoins went crazy. Quarter one of 2025. Every 4 years, are altcoins going to go crazy, or is alt season completely dead and it's going to dump? If we look down here at the RVI, there is a support going all the way back to December 2022, as you can see here, that recently got a bounce. We are also seeing this, so far the support zone is holding up. We saw obviously this major dump, volumes in the bearish volume volatility starting to fizzle out a little bit. So again, bringing all this in full picture, full circle, again, what I said about Bitcoin and all the scenarios I pointed out, maybe we see one more move down to recover a little bit more of this vector zone. Again, come down into the 50 EMA band a little bit more here, maybe 72K, wicks down to 70K at lowest. Again, bottom of the barrel 60K, which would be something like this, and then it comes back up. If that happens, then likely altcoins, well, which it's actually quite interesting. Altcoins have been holding up fairly well with this recent pullback. Maybe not necessarily all of them, but the number of the ones that I watch have been holding up fairly well with the fact that Bitcoin is, concretized this quite, I suppose, quote-unquote scary candle that at this point's only been, at 15%, again, only 25% down. So, I mean, really, none of this is really that big of a deal if you ask me. I'm essentially totally unbothered at this point. I think Bitcoin's still going to go higher here. I do hope, best case scenario, that this plays out, as I pointed out, like going all the way back to March of 2023 in quarter one, where we see this candle, weekly candle here, bought up. Again, late January 2024, weekly candle bought up. I think that, not necessarily, I don't think, but I hope that's what happens here, because that'll just be the best case scenario. It'll also be very nice to see structurally this repeat one more time, where we see this get bought back up over the next, 3 days, 14 hours, 4 days roughly, and then we see it move back up into this pennant flag, and then it breaks out. It finally has that move towards the, it's approximately $200,000, give or take $30,000, and we actually see that familiarity of that ecstatic, frenzied greed and euphoria. But really, just to end this video, again, at this point, it's nothing but a psychological battle and game at this point. Most of the bull market's already over, unless you're getting in altcoins that are at their lows, something like Polygon. Then you could actually catch the entire bull market for Polygon. But with how bad it's been moving, it may not even go that high at this point. But again, really, it's all just a psychological game at this point. If any advice, just sit back, relax, calm down, stop listening to that incessant, annoying, aggravating, fearful, panicky voice in your head that's constantly spewing a bunch of nonsense into your consciousness throughout the day, and just kind of stand back, third person view, eagle eye view, and just watch it all unfold with a rational mind. But all that being said, everything gone over as always, none of this meant to be financial advice, and I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Ooh, I'm regretting now.